Hey everybody, Jim the Tabletop Engineer here, and welcome to a new episode. If you'll keep watching this video, it's going to be a mix of time-lapse and, I guess, non-time-lapse. And I'm going to show you how I've gotten this spaceship this far. Let me rotate it around here for you. This thing, it looks a bit overkill, I will admit. But that's because everything is chipboard, wood, plastic, whatever. It's all glued. But once this thing is primed and painted, I think it's gonna look nice and sharp. So let's get to the tabletop and let me show you how I got it all to this point. All right, it is time to get this little ship added with some detail work. Before I paint it, I want to add all the what they call greebles or greebles to it. If you've ever seen how they made the old Star Wars movies and old science fiction films in the 70s and 80s, the modelers would frequently build a small model like this, and then they would glue on pieces from model kits. You know, they'd break off the sprues and they would glue them on, and then after it was painted and weathered, it would give it this authentic look. Now, I can't go that far because, honestly, I've gone and priced model kits these days, and they're not cheap. And just to buy 2 or 3 model kits for a few parts just isn't economically feasible. So instead, what I do is I go to my old favorites, which are chipboard, pieces of wood, unusual little electronics pieces like this, wood dowels and stuff like that. So this is absolutely one of my favorite parts of doing something like this. But before I get going too far, I want to go ahead and put the landing gear, or at least have an idea of how the landing gear is going to work on here. Because the bottom here of the engine, it could rest on the table, but it's not equal with the bottom of the cockpit, so it drops. So instead, what I want to do is I want to make this so that it does sit level with the ground. So to do that, I'm going to flip this thing over. I have 2 big wood circles here and a small one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these as landing gear. So to do this, I want to make the pad come slightly off of the engine here, and to do that, I'm just going to use. A lot of times you just got to find something. I'm going to use these. Well, let's see. I need some smaller ones. Here we go. These 2 small ones. If I glue 2 or 3 of these together, that's enough to give me a good raise. Not a big one, but the landing gear is not glued onto the actual material here. So normally I could use hot glue for this, but when I'm dealing with wood and cardboard, sometimes I like to go to wood glue. Wood glue just first off, it doesn't it compresses. Hot glue, if you put a lot on there and then you squeeze it together, the hot glue will actually add thickness to it, whereas the wood glue does not. So I'm just going to glue these 3 together, and then I'm going to glue them right there onto the center of this engine. And it doesn't have to look pretty because, honestly, it's going to be facing down and it's going to be painted. So I'm not really super concerned about how good it looks. I mean, I don't want it to look horrible, but 3 of these little wood pieces is more than enough. And they'll be mostly obscured. Like, look at this one. This one's broken. It's like a half piece, half circle. I'm going to glue it in the middle. Or actually, I'll probably glue it on the bottom, and it'll be glued to the cardboard, and you won't even see it. Why am I using hot glue? Such a habit of using hot glue. Let's use wood glue. And cover that up, and then one more. And again, all I'm doing here is just giving the ship a little extra detail to make it look a little more science fiction like. I don't necessarily care that the landing gear looks high tech, but I do want it to sit off enough that the ship sort of appears to be off the ground. All right, I'll let that dry. Now, when I glue these on, it's going to create a certain height from here, the top of it, to the ground, and I want to mimic that with this piece that's going to be glued up here underneath the cockpit, but I may have to build this up a little higher. And I won't know how high until the glue dries and I get a good measurement on how high up to make this. And that's actually what I want to do, is prop this up, because it's causing the, need some more. I just keep dropping pieces down until I find the right height. Oh, just a little bit more. A little bit more. Just keep going. There we go. That's perfect. Look at that. All right, so now I can glue this on, and I won't have to worry about it sliding off while the glue dries. So I'm going to put that on there. So now I have 2 landing gear pieces. And the good thing about wood glue, it's a little thicker than PVA white glue, so you know things are still going to slide if you're not careful. But it's a little thicker, so it's kind of like a tacky glue in that when you stick something together, it tends to not want to move, and it also tends to dry a little quicker. I don't know why wood glue dries quicker than PVA because it's about the same. It's a little thicker, but it's just basically glue, and but it does dry a little quicker. Now, what I've done here, by stacking these pieces, I know exactly how high I need to get this the circle on the bottom. So it's whatever these 4 items are right here. So I'm going to leave those on here, and I'm going to look and see. That's a quarter, and a little bit less. So I need some 1/4-inch pieces. All of these wood scraps are 1/4-inch thick. So I'm just going to grab some little squares that are all about the same size, and these 4 glued together should make for a nice offset for the landing gear. Let's make this. It's just going to be 4 of these stacked. 1, 2, 3. All right, and I'll just put them on here like this. I'm just, again, wood glue compresses pretty good, so I'm just squaring these up like so. And I've got this little 4 square stand, which are going to be glued right here at the front for the landing pad for the ship. Put that right there. And then what did I do with that one? Oh yeah, it's down here. Once this is dry, I'll glue that on, and I'll have my landing gear done, and then we can get started on the greebly detail work. All right, the landing gear is, the glue is dried enough that I can go ahead and start working on some of the greeblies and things. Typically what I want to do here is I want to use wood pieces and chipboard to just add paneling and armor and things like that. I don't really have a game plan here. This is more of an art than a science, and it really comes down to what looks good to you. So what I've done is I've got 6 sticks here that are all roughly the same length, and they're straight. Some of these are kind of bent. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue them on. I'm sort of wanting to add some visual elements to make the ship look 3-dimensional. Right now, all the flat surfaces just don't look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and I'm going to work symmetrically. So what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. Now that's not always true. Occasionally you want to break that symmetry up with something unusual, but you don't want to go too crazy with it. So I'm just going to glue these 3 on here. And again, they don't look good now. This is part of that. This is the part of the project where you look at something you're making and you just go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But you have to trust yourself, or at least trust those of us who've done this before, to keep pushing. Because what's going to happen is, after you get everything glued on and you get it primed and painted and then weathered a little bit, all of these weird things that really stick out, like these sticks, it'll all come together. So I've got 3 on this side. I'm going to spin it around here. I'm going to do 3 over here. And I'm doing this visually. I'm not doing it with a ruler, as you can see. I'm just sort of eyeballing it and trying to make it look approximately the same distance and from the edge and things like that. It all comes down to what you want your ship to look like. And I'm going to tell you this right now. This is yours. People may not like it. They may look at it and say, oh man, you should have done something this, should have done this, or should have done this. After a while, you sort of get numb to that. I mean, everybody has their opinion on stuff, and it's not that they're right or wrong. What I typically do is just invite people to I say, hey, make your own and send me a photo. I'd love to see it. Maybe you're right. Maybe that would have looked better. Now, before I do any kind of, I had already sort of placed these on here and knew that I like them. What I like to do is look and see if I'm placing something, if it's going to look right. And, I don't know. Wood or chipboard. Wood is easier because you don't have to cut it, but these are in fixed sizes. So you can go to the hobby store and you can buy these pre-cut wood pieces, and I'm going to make a mess here, but I really don't care. You can buy them in pre-cut sizes, and a lot of times they're not super accurate. If I hold two of these squares up together, they're close, but they're not matching perfectly. So, but you do want to try and get some things that look like they match. One of the things I don't like is these are just too big. Well, actually, that's not true. I do like that one. So I need to find one that's very similar. Oh, I just lucked out. Those two are pretty much the same size. Now, again, you can use hot glue for this if you want immediate, fast gluing. But I like wood, especially when I'm doing wood to chipboard, which is paper. I like it because, first off, it allows me to move it around before it dries. I can double check that I'm happy with the placement and check that the symmetry is good. But again, if you're just wanting something quick, if you want it to dry quick, use hot glue. It won't take but just a few seconds, and you're good to go. So what I'm doing here is I'm just placing. You could call these armor plating. You could just say they're access panels. It doesn't matter. I am intending to add a cockpit to this. That's why I'm not messing with this right now. But again, this looks very weird. But trust me, once it's all painted and everything, it'll make it look a little better. So what I want to do next is I think I want to do something for the front here. This is probably going to involve chipboard only because of the unusual shape. So what I'm going to do is trace it. I need to get a pen. I'm going to trace this front shape, and then I'm going to trim it a little shorter, a little shy of what I need. So just place it down here. And this is going to be one of those things that I sort of cut by look. It may not look exactly symmetrical, but it'll be close enough that I can live with it. I should probably tell you, those of you who are new to my channel, I'm not going for perfection. When I design something for my gaming tables, I'm really just looking for something fun to put on the table. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't think anything I've ever made is perfect. And perfect requires time. And I'm going to be honest, I would much rather be playing games than making terrain. I do love making terrain, but I make terrain so I can play the games and put things on the table that will look cool. All right, so you can see I've got this on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and trim this equally on all sides. I'm going to trim like 1/8 off of each side. There we go. That's good enough. That's acceptable to me. It's not this completely flat surface. It gives it some depth. And then, of course, after I glue this on, I'll probably add some wood pieces to the chipboard to just build this front out. I'll probably put some lights on it or something. I don't know what cars have headlights. Well, I would assume ships might need them as well. So I'm going to do that. So that's on there pretty good. I can set this down like that. Oh, that came off. Well, I guess the glue wasn't as dry as I thought it was. I may have to glue that again. All right, so up here, what I want to do is add some small circles for lights. So let me find a few. So like that. There we go. That's all you need. And you've heard that old maxim, the secret is knowing when to stop. That's true with crafting, especially crafting terrain and things like this. You can keep adding and adding and adding, but at some point you gotta stop. And it's tricky. It's tricky knowing, is this enough or is this lacking something here? Well, I don't know. If you're going for a sleek ship, you want to keep the Grebels to a minimum. But this thing is sort of kludged together in my mind. It's sort of like, it's scrap metal and just been pieced together over the years, and they're trying to keep it working. So the question is, what do I want to add here? I think what I'm going to add, I could add just a couple squares, and it sort of breaks it up. I like that. I do like that. It doesn't, you're not sure what they are, but it covers that flat area up and gives it some depth, gives it a three-dimensional look. And I think that's all I'm going to do for the front here. So I'm going to let this all dry before we move on to the next step, and we'll tackle the engines next. Right now, what I want to do is work on the wings and the engines, and I'm just moving front to back, just to let glue dry. I've got these oversized squares of wood, which I think are going to look really cool as armor on the wings here. Again, I'm trying to keep cutting of chipboard to a minimum. I will be doing some chipboard plating, but it'll be for unusual shapes and things like that. So all I'm doing here is just eyeballing it, trying to center it up. And again, it doesn't look great right now, but anytime you add thickness or depth or items like these wood pieces that add thickness or height to an object, once it's painted, once you have that shadowing down in there and that raised edge and those 90-degree corners and things, it really starts making a model look, much more realistic. This is probably never going to be movie quality type, but for my work, for my game table, this is going to be great. I've been wanting to build a small 1 or 2 man fighter craft that I could drop on the table in a sci-fi war game that didn't take a lot of space. I mean, this is probably, well, let's see, it's 11 inches by about 12 inches. So, 1 foot by 1 foot, I can live with that. The wing here has this unusual shape. These angles do not match. So what I'm going to have to do is to create something that will fit in there to break that up. I also, again, I love these wood sticks for what they do. They're easy to give to break up that flat surface. Let me add one more to each side. Probably should have cut these down, but they're perfect. They're a perfect size for this wing right here. There we go. And again, you just keep adding until you're happy with it, until you're satisfied that, it's enough. When is enough? That's up to you. I don't know. This is not enough for me. I'm going to keep adding more to it. Let's see. Let's do some stuff up here on the top of the engines while I'm waiting on the landing gear to dry. I mentioned to you these pieces right here, which I really like. I thought those look awesome right there. I don't know what they are, but they're gonna. And I only have the 2 of them, so that's gonna be perfect. Go for symmetry when you can, and that's what this is gonna help. It's symmetrical, left to right, when looking at it from the front. And these 2 pieces are just really. I knew when I cut them that I needed to save them for something rather than throw them out. A lot of times after you laser something, you'll throw out little piddly pieces like this, but I don't. I save a lot of things that I laser cut because you just never know when you're going to need something. And if I found I needed more of these, I'll just go cut a couple more. Each one of these took about, what I was cutting was these 4 little dots. They got glued on some trains I was making, and what I could do is I could just cut 2 more or 3 more or 4 more, however many, and save the dots for later and get these pieces. But I think 2 of these is perfect for what I'm going for. Now, I don't want everything on this ship to be flat and panel-y looking and stuff. So I'm going to have to look for things that I can integrate into the ship. I don't know when I made this. I know I made it a while back. This is wire harnessing. It like splits and you can stick wire in it to run. It's flexible. And I glued it on here as a test, and actually it's not glued on there, it's loose. But it wouldn't reach. So I think I just threw it into the scrap and forgot about it. But I kind of like it, but I don't care for this piece or this piece. I kind of like the look of that. I need to find a dowel, and I do have a dowel. Hang on. I do have one. I have a dowel, and it just happens. This is chance. It just happens to be almost the same length, a little bit longer, I think. Let me put it in there. Okay, so it's not going to reach all the way around, but man, that would look 2 of those. Man, do I have 2 of these? I don't think I do. Urgh. That's the other thing. Sometimes you find you only have 1 of something. I can't remember where I keep this. I may have to go look for it. I think I see it over there in one of my work drawers. I could probably... Yeah, let me get it. Guys, if you're going to be a crafter, especially sci-fi, don't throw away anything. I have some of this flexible tubing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another one of these dowels. All right, so here are the 2 dowels. What I'm going to do is cut this to match the... I may have to do this with a blade. Let's see. I'm just going to eyeball it here. I'm going to cut and trim as needed. All right, so I cut a piece. Then I'm going to stick this in here like that. Actually, probably what I'm going to end up doing is gluing it in so the tubing doesn't move. And as you can see, I'm going to have to trim off some of the excess on the sides here, which get a good pair of scissors and you can just sort of tackling it a little at a time. There we go. All right, that. And then I'm going to flush that. And then I'm going to do this side as well. Doesn't look perfect, but good enough. There's one, and this one, nope, that one's not long enough. Let me cut a second one. All right, save everything. Throw that in your junk pile. And you never know, you might have a need for it again. All right, so let's make sure this is going to work. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm just test fitting the piece, and then I'm trimming it flush. All right, there's that. When in doubt, cut less. You know, if you're concerned you're going to get too close, hold off. Don't do any more. All right, there we go. Let's see. Are those going to fit? Yes, they will. They're tight, but they will fit in there. And what it does, it's going to break up the flatness of the model. This has a curve to it, so pretty pleased. So to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze a drop of hot glue, whoops, down in there, and that'll be enough to just hold the plastic so it doesn't shift around. Just squeeze a little bit of hot glue down in there, and there you go. Let that hot glue dry, which doesn't take very long. All right, now I have my two pieces that will be glued in here. Now the ends aren't perfect, but I have an idea for how I'm going to fix that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue the wood to the chipboard. So I'm going to just run a bead along here, and I'm going to press it into the edge, flush with the back here. I'm going to do the same with this one. It's a tight fit, so I'm hoping I don't break the model. I'll try to be careful. All right, you get down in there. There we go. All right, there we go. I like that. Now in front here, what I can do is I could cap these with 2 of these circles, and I have more of these, I'm sure. I have them around here somewhere. Let me check. Here we go. Two small ones, and I can glue them over the front just to cover up the wood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a big blob of glue, hot glue, so that it'll reach the wood, the end of the wood, and cover up the graininess of that dowel. All right, and then let's do one more. There we go. And I'll show this to you in just a second from the front. There you go. All right. And I'm also going to do them on the back. What I did right there was I put the glue on, and then I spun it on the plastic to just get some of the hot glue on all the surface. Just sit here and just spin it to sort of spread that glue out so that it gets a good connection on every part of it. There we go. And again, this will be primed, so it's not going to look like black tubing with wood glued onto the end of it. But there we go. Not bad. Pleased with that. All right, what next? Let's tackle the cowl, this piece that goes around the engine. I've got two pieces here, which are demanding something. I think I'm going to do a mix. I've got these little electronic pieces here. What you do is you stick two wires into the two little holes here, and with a pair of pliers, you press down on this red button, and it makes a connection between the two wires so you don't have to solder them together. You can buy a box of these for like $2 or $3, and they're just good little greebles to keep on file. I think it'd be interesting to have these, you know, on the cowling somewhere. They stick out, but they're not so thick that they look weird. It's not like a 1-inch tall thing coming out. What I may do is glue them with the red dot down, although I do like the red dot showing. I think that's what I'm going to do. So these will require hot glue, so just a dab of hot glue, and I'm going to put these on the back here facing the front. You'll need to hold these for a few seconds to let that glue cool, the hot glue cool, so it doesn't, gravity doesn't spin it in place. And that will be that. And again, what you're seeing here is just how I build, you know, how I build a ship. I just keep adding little bits and pieces at a time. I move around. I don't tackle one particular part. So right now what I'm going to do is leave the engines alone, and I'm going to look at this neck piece right here. But behind where the cockpit's going to go, there's this flat area here which just looks really, it needs something. So my go-to is usually paneling, and again, this ship is supposed to have a lot of that. That is not the right size. So let me find 3 or 4 that are all about the same size. That one's too big. That's about right. I think I could get 4 on here. 1, 2, 3. Can I get a 4th one on there? That may be too much, although I do like it. Yeah, the wood, I'm starting to get picky about the wood because some of it just doesn't look right, but it's close enough. And again, the paint and the primer will hopefully, the paint and the primer will hopefully cover up a lot of the weird, you know, they'll pull the eye away from the imperfections of the wood. That piece is curved. That's not going to work. It's the other thing you got to do with wood. You got to make sure it's not warped. That piece was warped, so it wasn't sticking to the chipboard. Let's see. Man, these wood pieces are really nice, but it's cheap wood. I mean, the company that cuts them, they could do a better job but then it would be expensive. You get what you pay for. You want to buy a cheap bag of this, it's like $3 for a couple hundred pieces. But again, the wood is subpar, warped, definitely. And if you try to bend it so that it's not warped, you risk breaking it. Yeah, like that. So, man, all these pieces are. Well, that's not bad. That one will do. Now, I'm not done with the neck. These are the start of it. This is just what I wanted to do by adding these panels here. So let me spin this around and show it to you. So far, I mean, I'm liking. But I've still got a lot to do. I've got side panels here, the front of the engines, the wings, up here to do, and of course the rear. So we're not anywhere close. So what I'll do is I'm just going to keep letting the glue dry a little bit, and I'll keep plugging ahead and adding more to it. Apologies for the video being choppy, but we'll just keep adding to it until it's ready for prime and paint. Because I want to finish up this area, I'm going to go ahead and make the cockpit just so I can keep moving forward. The cockpit is 1.5 inches. It's got a 1.5 inch base, so I don't want it. I don't want it to go from edge to edge. So I'm going to make it. We'll call it 1 inch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 marks on here at the 1 inch marks, or I'm going to make a 1 inch gap. And then what I'm going to do, is I'm going to draw out the rough shape of the cockpit of what I want it to look like. It's going to be angled, twisted. Man, I'm going to break this if I keep doing that. I want it to look like a standard cockpit with, you know, that angles down and also has angled sides. So I'm going to start with just a basic 1-inch strip here, and then I'm going to make the pieces that will fold off of it and allow it to look sort of, I don't know, the piece that angles up and allows the pilot to get out. What I want to do is I want to create the pieces. Let me go ahead and cut them. It's kind of hard to, sometimes I can visualize in my mind what I want, but it's hard to put it into words. So let me just show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so here's the basic piece that's going to sit up here, and it's not going to be very tall. It's going to be very low, flush, low, not flush, but low to this flat surface here. And I just want to make it about that long. Yeah, that's perfect. So in order for this to sit up here, what I'm going to have to do is make some pieces, and I want it to sort of like, you know, be like that. So I'm looking at triangular pieces for the sides. To do that, I'm going to make a mark on here that tells me where the front is, and then I'm going to make another mark over here, which is about the height of the cockpit. You don't have to measure it; you just sort of eyeball it. And then I'm gonna draw a line, and I'm gonna cut this piece out, but I need 2 of them. Oop. All right. You see that? It's a very small piece, and I'm gonna cut on right on the blue line as best I can. Now, for a small piece like this, it's kind of tricky to duplicate. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use my blade to do it. I'm gonna put this here, and I'm gonna be very, very careful here because I don't want to cut myself. And I'm just going to score it so I can kind of see where the line is. There we go. And then I can cut it with the scissors. If you used a pen, you're going to add thickness to it, and that's not what I want to do. And also the chipboard bends a little bit, so you're going to have to bend it back in place. So now what I've got is I've got 2 pieces that can be glued together to make a little cockpit here. And I'm going to glue it on the underside, and what I mean by that is this piece is not glued on the edge of this. This is glued on top of the edge of that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to apply glue to this, and I'm going to use wood glue here, not hot glue, because the hot glue is going to make it, it's going to give it some rough edges where the wood glue, or the hot glue dries. And I want this to be fairly smooth looking and flush without any kind of glue remnants, if that makes sense. I like hot glue. Hot glue's great, but hot glue will also give you, you know, a mess that you've got to deal with. And for the cockpit, I just don't need that. I want the cockpit to look very sleek and clean. So I've glued that on one side. Now I got to glue this other one over here, like that. That's perfect. All right, more glue. And the wood glue dries clear, so that's another reason I like it. Is hopefully when it's finished drying, there won't be any lumps of glue or visible pieces of it. All right. Now this is going to take This is going to take more than a few minutes to dry, probably about 20 or 30 minutes. But there's my cockpit, and it's gonna go right here. Now I'm not going to mess with it right now because I also need to create the back piece for it. But I'm not going to do that until this thing is really well dried, because if I start messing with it right now, it's just going to fall apart. So I'm just going to leave that there. I could move this forward. I actually kind of like that. I don't know. Do I like it further back, which is the more traditional, or do I move it forward and leave an area back here for something interesting? No, I like the more traditional look. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to take this part and I'm going to set it aside where it can stay safe and dry, and we'll keep moving forward with some other Grebels. I went diving through my junk drawer and I got really lucky. These are contact lens cases. My wife now wears the disposable kind where you throw them away each day, which, no, that's probably not good, but This is what contact lenses used to be kept in, and I don't know where the lids are. The lids would have been good, but I don't have them. But I have 2 of these, and I was looking at this, and oh my gosh, this is going to be perfect. What I'm going to do is these are going to be the left and right engines, and they're going to give me depth, which is, you know, inside when I paint this thing, they're going to look great. I just love it. So real simple here, just a dab of hot glue and a dab of hot glue. You only get really one shot at this, and I want to put it. I'm looking at it from the top down here. I'm trying to space it properly. That's perfect. And then another dab and another dab. And if you don't have a junk box or a junk drawer that you use for crafting, I highly encourage you to start one. If you take something apart, you get the little pieces inside, gears and pulleys and whatever, keep them. Just keep a junk box, because you never know when you're going to be doing some crafting what you're going to need. Now, right now they look like horrible. They look like white plastic glued to chipboard. But I think and I hope when this thing is all primed and painted that they're going to pull together and give the engines a real nice look. All right, the engines, the front of the engines are done. All right, let's keep going. One of the things, and let me see if I can put this into words. You want to be careful not to go too crazy with weird stuff, because then your ship just starts looking like less like a spaceship and more like you just glued a bunch of plastic bits and stuff together, and people will go, what is that? We want the basic shape to retain that spaceship look. So right now, between the front of the engines and these little pieces glued on top and these 2 pieces right here, and of course these 2 pieces glued, I want to be very careful. I don't want to keep adding the weird bits. So I think I'm going to focus now more on plating again. Now, knowing that I've got the cockpit right here, I've got to decide if I want anything up here just to leave it smooth. I've got the cowling here, and then I've got the ends of the wings, and then of course I've got the insides. I am not going to mess with the bottom. I'm not going to do anything with the bottom. Main reason being is this is meant to sit, and I'm not worried about people. People may lift it up and look, but I'm not going to go crazy with adding stuff to the bottom here because it's just not going to be visible. I'm mainly concerned with those areas that are going to be visible. So let's keep going here. We've got some cowling areas that need covering, and I found this piece, which is perfect, but I only have one of them, so it looks like I'm going to have to dump out more of my wood pieces and find some extras. I don't like these because I've used them too many times, so I'm done. I don't want to use those anymore. Let's see, what else have we got? I have other wood bits and bobs. I have flat skewers here. I've got way too much. Oh, no, here we go. Here's another bag of little wood scraps. Let's see what's in here. Oh, no, these aren't bad. I've got some interesting bigger pieces here, but they're too big for the cowling. Those might have been good for here, like 2 of those. Or they can be for the sides. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use these for the sides, at least part of the sides. So I need 2 of those. And make sure they're the same size. And they are. Okay, that's good. What else do I have in here? Oh, there we go. I got that. Do I have another one of those? Please. Nope. Yep. Are those the same size? They are. Okay, so I've got 2 of these, which would be perfect for the cowling. So I'll glue one right there. And I don't know about you, but if you're using wood glue, don't go crazy spreading a lot. Spread a little, and it dries quicker. And it also is less likely to cause it to fall down with gravity. This is being glued on a side at an angle, and if I had a lot of glue there, it would just slowly slide down. But I just put enough to keep the wood and the chipboard connected, and hopefully it won't slide, but it'll dry a little quicker. And here. And again, I'm just eyeballing, trying to make everything line up the same way. I don't want it to be too out of balance, symmetry-wise. And then I've got these two areas right here, which are perfect for those little ones. I can just do two little ones there, and it'll look like armor plating. That's perfect. Now, if you're asking yourself, hey, I don't have all these weird bits and bobs, that's what I was saying earlier in the video, is that this is your ship. You're going to have to do it the way you want. And of course, that means also limited by what you have available. You can do it the way you want, but the way you want is going to be limited by what you have on hand. So if you don't have a lot of this stuff, my suggestion is, always use chipboard when you can. If you don't have the wood, no big deal. Chipboard, you can buy it cheap off of Amazon. It comes in like a 25 pack of 12 by 12 sheets. It'll last you a good long time, unless you make a lot of these things like I do, and then you'll go through it quite a bit. But chipboard tends to last. Keep your scraps, because you never know when you're going to need to cut something small here. I found these. I have a whole bunch of these. These are staples that you, like if you're stapling something to your house, like lights or something, the staple gun holds these, and it presses on this metal piece, which goes through the white plastic, holds the wire, but it doesn't puncture the wire. And I just grabbed two because I thought, man, it looks realistic. It's metal. And I thought these might look interesting somewhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these, could I put them there? No, that doesn't look right. And again, maybe it looked right to you. Doesn't look right to me. So I'm going to keep playing around with this. I guess I could put maybe two of them here, or maybe front. I don't even know what they are. What would they be on the spaceship? That's one of the things you want to ask yourself. If you're making weapons, do these look like weapons? Well, not really. So you have to be kind of picky about what you glue in place. This thing is definitely warped. Man, I definitely want to use these, but where would I put them? Maybe I would put them on the side, like maybe they're steps. Ooh, I like that. I like that. Let me do that. Let me show you. I'm going to glue one in, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This is like a little metal step for where the pilot would climb up on the ship. Right there, you see it? I like that. Yeah, and I'll put one on the other side too. Little details like this, do you need it? No. I'm going to have to paint it because it's going to get primed when I prime this model. But I'm just gluing things where I feel they might need to go. So I've got two little steps for the pilot to step up so they can climb in the cockpit there. All right, the cockpit is just about dry, so I can go ahead and cut the end of it here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little hot glue. And I'll show you why. I'm going to put hot glue on the end here, on the shape. Then I'm going to press a piece on there like that and wipe off the excess. And what it does is it gives me a trimmable area, so I can trim it with scissors and trim it flush and make sure it looks good. All right, and then here. All right, and now I have a three-dimensional cockpit that can be glued down here. And I'm going to use I'm going to use wood glue for this because I definitely want it to, I don't want any of the hot glue mess. And I think I said I was going to glue it further back. And it's going to go right there. All right, so we have the cockpit on. So far, I am really, really liking this. There's not much more to do. The wings, the inside right here, and the sides, and of course the back. And we will be done with this thing. I didn't like how the engines are hollow in here, so I grabbed some of these laser cut. They're kind of hard to see because they're painted black. These are wheels that I make. They're train wheels for toys. And the reason I like them is I've already cut a spoke. There's a spoke pattern on them that unfortunately I just don't think you're going to be able to see on the video. But I think once they're primed, you'll see it. I'm going to glue these in, and all I'm going to do is just put a drop of glue in the center here, and then drop one down into each area. And I hope that's enough glue to hold it in. It's not. No, I'm gonna have to do it on the sides. Okay, so I have to glue some there and right there, right there, and right there. I'll just have to put a bunch in there. And I think what this will do is it'll give that that engine something that looks like there's an actual, you know, rotor type something inside that will make it look a little more realistic. Can you see that? And again, sorry, they're painted black. I pre-paint them, so you can't see the rotary, but it's there. And the nice thing about putting hot glue on plastic is you can later on scrape out some of the excess if it shows up. There's a little bit here on the edge. I can just, with my fingernail, I can get it off. All right, that's much better. That makes me feel a little better about the engines. All right, I have been trying to figure out what I'm going to do about the rear engines, and I think I've got a solution. I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to try. These are caps on little air fresheners my wife buys, and again, save it all. When you see little bits like this, you just save it. And I actually have 4 of them in my junk drawer. And I'm going to glue them on. They have this protruding bit, which at first I didn't like it, but it's kind of grown on me just because I know it's going to be primed and painted, and it will look like maybe an exit nozzle. I may even paint the tip black back here to give it that impression. There are 4 like fins on it, so I want to make sure I glue them not only it lined up with the front here, but also like horizontally, like vertical, north, south, east, west. So this will be a little tricky, and I'm gonna have to use hot glue for this, which I'm not really a fan of because I know it's gonna leave a blob, but I'm going to, yep, that's gonna be good enough. So there we go, got one. And the other one will be right below it. And they might be a little off in terms of like, they may not match the exact front, but I'm not really worried about that. If somebody wants to look at it and examine it and go, they're not lined up, that's okay. I can live with that. All right, 2 more. And again, at this point, I start getting really not nervous. I want to go ahead and paint and prime it. You know, I want to see what it's going to look like, but I'm not done yet. I got to keep going. And but yeah, this thing is going to look. I think it's going to look really cool once it gets all primed and everything matches together and covers up the glue and stuff like that. There we go. All right. Yeah, definitely like that. That was a good call. All right, I've let the glue dry really well, so all that's needed to finish up is the sides here and the wings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to time lapse this last bit. I think you get the general idea of sort of how I'm adding bits and pieces here and there. So let's go ahead, and I want to wrap this up so I can get this thing primed and painted, and So let's go ahead and get this thing done with all the greebles, and the next video we'll get it primed and painted. All right, so there you go. Seriously, it's just a matter of gluing on bits and bobs, chipboard, some wood pieces, random things to give it, give it a little character. I honestly don't know at this point what it's going to look like when it's all painted, but I can tell you that it's going to look a lot cooler than if it was just flat, smooth chipboard before I glued all this stuff on. So in the next video, we're going to finish this up. I'm going to prime it. I'm going to paint it a base color, and then I'll go about painting the individual items that need to be, stand out or be a different color, and then I'll weather it, and we'll see what it looks like. The goal here was to create a small 1 or 2 man ship that could be put on one of my sci-fi war game tables and would fit right in. And so I think so far I'm quite pleased with where this is going, and I hope you're liking what you're seeing. Honestly, this is something you can do. Now, if you watch the first video, you'll see how I got the general shape of it using nothing but chipboard. Getting it to this point requires having, some patience and just a little bit of an artistic eye to kind of figure out what you want it to look like. And then, of course, the next step is to get it painted the way you like. But if you're a little nervous about doing something like this, remember, what this looks like now, it was just smooth chipboard that consisted of nothing but like tubes, some odd angular pieces, some L-shaped wings, and these weird engine type things. All of it can easily be done with chipboard if you've got the patience. And I definitely would like to see pictures of what you're making when you get it to this point. Obviously, I want to see the end result. But if you're following along and making your own ship, absolutely, please share a photo. Come join me over at the Tabletop Engineer Facebook page. Share pictures of the ships that you're crafting, because I'd really like to see them. Chances are you're going to do something that will give me inspiration, give me an idea for the next sci-fi ship. But for right now, when I finish this, I'm going to take a break on sci-fi and go over to some fantasy terrain for a little bit, because I'm playing some new fantasy solo war games that should be fun. Speaking of that, I have a brand new channel. It's called the Tabletop Engineer Plays. I will put a link in the description below. What I've done is I've split out all my crafting videos to this channel, and I'm going to be putting all my gameplay videos over on the Tabletop Engineer Plays channel. So if you want to see this in action when it's all said and done, come over there and watch some of the latest sci-fi war games that I'm playing, and you may catch this in action. All right, that's all I have for this week. I'll be back next week with finishing up this spaceship. And until then, this is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Everybody, take care.